Welcome back, everybody, to part 3 of our Inside the Music with Andy Schwartman. This is the episode on the 40th anniversary of the AC/DC album Back in Black. I can't believe it's been 40 years since the release of that record. That blows me away.
Welcome back, Tony Keefer, our special guest and frequent co-host.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Tony.
My brother from another mother.
Appreciate you both showing off some of your memorabilia. I'll go first and early in this episode. I have a vinyl promo copy of Back in Black, and you guys may know this. When vinyl records are pressed, they first make like a metal master, and then they press the vinyl off of that, and
Okay.
they call it the mother, I think, the mother master or metal mother or something like that. But they say that the first few thousand of them sound a little bit better, and then they have to make a new metal master a little bit later. So when you get a promo copy, you know you got one of the first ones off the line. So that's a keeper right there, and it's in really good shape. I guess you'd have to have much better stereo equipment than what I personally have to be able to tell the difference. But that's the little bit of memorabilia that I brought. Let me kickstart the conversation with you guys by saying this. We know that AC/DC technically isn't heavy metal, and assuming that most of us agree that Back in Black is probably the #1 all-time hard rock album of all time. Just for the sake of argument, what other records would you guys put in your personal top 10? I'm going with like Van Halen 1. I love that first record by Montrose. Mm-hmm. Sammy Hagar was still a teenager. Cheap Trick's first album, Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. What can you say? What do you guys think?
I would agree with Number of the Beast. I love that album. Double Fantasy by John Lennon with his wife Yoko Ono.
Wait, hold on, Andy. We're talking about the greatest hard rock and heavy metal.
Oh, okay, my bad. But anyway, Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast, definitely. Back in Black, definitely. I mean, how can you go wrong? Well, Women and Children First by Van Halen.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. That is like the pinnacle of rock music to me.
What do you think, Tony?
If any...
You mentioned a record earlier. You mentioned when Ronnie James Dio took over for Ozzy of Black Sabbath, and that Heaven and Hell record to me is one of my all-time favorite records, so I put that up there. I'm going to go... So I had a blank there. Peace of Mind by Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
To trump over Number of the Beast a little bit. I don't know, I might be getting across it a little bit here, but I have to say Kill 'Em All by Metallica, Master of Puppets by Metallica.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit more in the thrash realm. And can't deny those Van Halen records by any stretch of the imagination. So
I mentioned in our last episode that I'm more of a Bon Scott guy. Personally, I think Let There Be Rock really captures the AC/DC sound because they recorded with their amps way too loud. You can hear the amps buzzing. They're a little out of tune. They sound ragged and drunk, and there's no ballads on there. That record is like really raw, hard rock.
Yeah.
No pretensions to mainstream success or concern with that sort of thing whatsoever.
No.
Long before anyone ever imagined or dreamed that stuff could have mass appeal.
We talked about Bon Scott, and this could be a whole other episode, so we're not dwell into this too long. There are a lot of theories out there that Bon Scott's thumbprint is on Back in Black, and that a lot of these songs may have been, I'm going to say may have been, crafted or started before Bon's passing. So
totally agree.
Some that's, you know.
Andy, let me read something, and then you tell me what you think. Are you there, Andy?
Oh, yeah, I am.
Okay. This is something that I get drawn into this conversation. I start this conversation fairly often because I'm really fascinated by what is basically a conspiracy theory, but there's some pretty serious evidence out there that suggests that AC/DC had begun work on this record at the time of Bon Scott's death. Angus and Malcolm, with Bon on drums, they had already been in the routine of cutting demos before making a record. That was something they had been working on when Bon died. None of those recordings, none of those demos have ever surfaced. It's well known among Bon's friends and family at the time. He always carried a notebook with him when he was working on new lyrics. That notebook,
that's right.
That notebook went missing when he died. That's never been recovered. Bon died in February, yet somehow Back in Black was written, recorded, mastered, and released just 5 months later. I know those guys were fast workers, but that is a little fishy to me. I know the band considered breaking up, then decided to continue. Brian Johnson only got the call and offered the job at the end of March. They were going to rehearse for 3 weeks, but when an opening came up at Compass Point Studios in the Bahamas, they cut their rehearsals down to 1 week, which further limited their time to really rehearse or write songs. Based on this information and the fact that the band's songs and lyrics and record sales never again came anywhere near the quality of this record, many people believe, as Tony said a moment ago, Bon Scott's song ideas were indeed incorporated into what became the Back in Black album. Andy, how do you feel about that theory?
You know what? I really don't know. There has been so much drawn up about the way Bon died that I just attribute the way Bon died to alcohol, too much alcohol. Same thing with John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. Same thing.
So does it really carry your way, Bon? It really, and it doesn't matter. It's a great record, nonetheless. Just kind of an interesting thought to think maybe that thumbprint is somewhere to be found on this record.
Yeah, example. You know the line, "She told me to come when I was already there," from "You Shook Me All Night Long"?
Mm-hmm.
Bon Scott, completely.
Yeah.
That sounds like something Bon would have written.
Yeah.
Does it not?
No, very, very kind of sleazy, little dirty. I mean, that's Bon Scott, sleazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
and all that. You
yeah,
can't blame them either. In fact, some of the more recent AC/DC records, Angus and Malcolm wrote the lyrics, so there's probably a lot of stuff that those songs that were credited to Young, and Scott all those years, and then later credited to Young, and Johnson, they never really have said how much Angus and Malcolm have had a hand in writing the lyrics, although Bon Scott's personality is all over that early stuff. Those dudes would have been crazy to have already been in the process of cutting the demos and coming up with riffs and verses and choruses and the structure and arrangements of those songs. When Bon died, those guys would have been crazy to totally scrap all that and start over.
Exactly, yeah.
Whether or not he did or whether or not he didn't, it doesn't take anything away from Brian Johnson, because that dude was, like I said, he's the reason he's the reason AC/DC continued. I mean, he was the only guy who could have filled those shoes, and he did a great job. And it was proof when he had his hearing issues and was out of the band there for that last go round and Axl took over. I mean, it wasn't the same. Nobody else.
Yeah.
No, and the way I look at it is, you take one of the key ingredients out of a specific band, and it's not the same.
Really not. Those guys have had their problems in the past and had to replace Phil Rudd a couple of times. They made some pretty good records. I think Simon Wright played drums with him. Maybe was it Chris Slade filled in?
Yes. Chris Slade was on the Razor's Edge. Yes.
Great drummers, but if you take Phil Rudd out of the equation, if you don't have Cliff and Phil laying it down, it just doesn't sound the same.
No, and I mean, you try to, I mean, let's just call a spade. Axl Rose's musical home is Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's the band that he started. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely.
And his favorite,
favorite
song ever, "A Whole Lot of Rosie." That's Axl Rose's favorite song ever, and it was a cool novelty thing. And I kind of regret not seeing it, but yes, it was a one-off. Brian's back in the band, and we might have one more album and one more tour out of AC/DC.
Guys, we've only got about a minute left before
I want to share something with you guys real quick. Hang on a second.
We've only got about a minute left here, Andy, so
I know.
And tell me real quick what you got to think about some of the photos.
I just thought of something. So, remember when we checked this out from the library?
Great book.
Remember this? Okay. Well, ironically, I got it from my sister and her kids, and I'm telling you what, as soon as I got it, from them, I put the copy that we got from the library back on the landing in our house.
Yeah.
And I put this copy in my book library, and it has never left.
Great book. It's a great read. Andy, I'm glad you remembered to mention that today. So let's wrap things up, you guys. I was starting to say a moment ago that last year there were some photos and rumors surfacing of, pictures of the guys in AC/DC photographed outside a recording studio in Vancouver where they've made their last 3 or 4 records. So we might get one more album, Tony, as you said a moment ago, maybe one more tour out of them after there's a vaccine or some sort of changes made in the concert industry to address
Yes.
COVID. But Andy, why don't you go ahead and wrap up part 3? Be quick because we're running out of time. Tony,
Okay.
thanks for being with us.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you guys for watching this episode of, these 3 episodes of Inside the Music. Rock on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, guys.
Great job, Andy.
Thank you, Rick.